I want to start living my life like in movies. Like, do these things intentionally for people to just be like, dude, what the are you doing?
Hey YouTube, welcome back to our channel. My name is Yelena.
And I'm Bjorn.
And we are Viking Age reenactors and living historians here to talk with you about your favorite Viking shows.
So we're still making our way through Last Kingdom. We're about to start episode 6. Very excited for it. Just a quick note. So we're probably going to start slowing down on Trailer Tuesday videos just because there aren't really that many trailers out at the moment. When we find some, we will send them out and it'll be great. In the meantime, we're probably just going to be focusing more on Last Kingdom, getting that wrapped up and finalized. If we have the time, probably branch off and do some other shows and start generating some new, exciting content. But for now, Last Kingdom, episode 6.
Destiny is all.
Do they use that line in the book? Destiny is all?
I think so.
Just on the little details, I guess. So every recap ends with him saying destiny is all real serious and oh kind of thing. But it's kind of like that fatalistic approach that the Vikings had in terms of life. They believed that their lives were predestined, which you see reoccurring throughout all the shows. So it's the way of saying that fate rules everything. You know, you can't escape from that. Even Odin couldn't, as much as he tried. But it reminds me, I think it's kind of their own spin on an old English saying, which I'm probably going to butcher the pronunciation, but it was Wirbith Forad, which basically means the same thing. It's Wird, which is fate. But it basically just means fate cannot be changed, essentially. That's my own bastardization and translation right there for you. And it's the same concept. So it's nice to see that that phrase that we have from Old English is just placed into the show every single episode. And it's such a cool guiding principle to see that, Udry kind of bases his whole thing around.
Yeah.
His whole personality and his whole life design.
Yeah, and I think his belief in destiny comes from his time spent with the Vikings.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it just shows that Viking upbringing of just, the heavy fatalistic approach. The Norns been your thread of life, and from the moment you're born, you're predestined when you die. And how you die. So there's no escaping it.
We will seize Uhtred's lands and cook him and take his children.
No
He
cutting.
will pay for abducting a child of my blood.
I think his children are with him. He was seen on the road with a number of children.
Speak of this to no one. We need to maintain a semblance of order.
Lord King, the priest told me that the room offered to Ethel Hood to greed is empty. It appears she has also left Ailments.
Good question. Is there a reason why they're having this discussion in the middle of this whole procession?
It's a little awkward, right?
They literally came into the room to have this discussion.
I'm just imagining
while people are paying their respects.
I'm just imagining all the nuns and all the ealdormen just I'm waiting for somebody to just shh, quiet. Yeah, that's really. I wasn't even thinking about that. I was just I was more upset with him on the dude in line when he went out to talk, and then I was okay, you're gonna give your own little monologue here, but
No, they just beelined it into the room next to all of the people that are paying their respects to
Yeah,
their dead king.
It's wicked awkward. I didn't even catch that at all. Weird.
All right.
You'd think they'd at least be off in the corner, but they're right next to him. They're in people's way.
Yeah.
So I have to walk around this weird conversation. Uh-oh. Oh.
Go back! Stay back! Is that pea?
Nor is he to spread my touch.
No, it is the air that spreads it. Do you have it?
Come on.
Go.
We have no choice. We have to run to the
6 feet.
the woods somewhere safe. We'll go across land to Enwaka on foot.
Man, this is too... I watch these shows to escape real life. I don't need this.
Right. To make a proper point. I can't really tell what sickness they were dying from aside from being stabbed.
Yeah, through the chest. Yeah,
That would make anybody cough up some blood.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Yeah, I mean, sickness is not really super well documented in the Viking Age, at least nothing pandemic. The first thing that everybody thinks about with medieval sickness is the plague.
Right.
That's not going to be this. The plague was well after it, by like 400 years almost. And even then, it didn't enter Scandinavia until after the first surge in mainland Europe. So it wouldn't be anything like that in particular. I do believe there was, like, very, very little, but I believe there was some recounts of, they believe, like, leprosy or something similar that went through. I think there was actually a body in, like a Viking body that was found in Ireland. That was an outsider. He was a Norse Viking, so he wasn't from Ireland. But they actually did some testing on the remains, and they actually found, like, through the like in the bone, like, that he actually had some kind of sickness, like akin to leprosy or something. It was like leprosy or something else, and I can't remember. But I know that, like, they're more certain it was leprosy than something else.
Right.
Which is interesting. And then, like, through the area, there are, like, a few other people all buried. I think they were buried in, like, a church ground, that they kind of all similarly had the same kind of thing, which is weird. So we might be seeing some kind of hint at that, maybe.
Possibly. I mean, how they would know from just looking at them, I'm kind of confused about.
Well, yeah, and I mean, that's absolutely true. Like, we, of course, know that they experienced some forms of certain diseases that anybody would generally. I mean, just from childbirth to your first 6 years, you would have experienced a whole ton. So why we have vaccines nowadays to prevent children from just dying of something stupid. But in addition to that, we also know that in times of warfare and strife, some Viking forces and some non-Viking forces would suffer various diseases of all the people being gathered together. Like dysentery was very common when you're out raiding. And there are some accounts of Viking warbands basically being ruined by it, and even Viking chieftains dying of it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know of any specific instances of, like, pandemics or mass viruses or any kind of widespread disease going around in the Viking Age, but it certainly would have been something familiar to them.
Right.
Yeah. We just found out about this. It's not been 2 minutes before we found out about it, so this is all speculation.
Right.
We will maybe find out more if we stop talking. But just initial reaction to, my thoughts going through.
Yeah,
That's
and
all.
Initial reaction is also just kind of confusion, especially since they start talking immediately about whether it's being spread by touch or through the air.
Yeah, which is an interesting concept. I'm not sure if they, like, had the know-how for that.
I will be betrothed to the child, and I will succeed the throne.
If it is so certain, why is it not yet done?
Waiting for that kid to speak.
I was actually about to say the same thing.
Like,
he has not said a word this entire time.
He's just been standing around, like, getting led around by, like, the hand of his father, like, on the small of his back, just wide-eyed, not knowing what's going on.
Yeah, like, he doesn't even move on his own. He's just kind of there as a puppet for his dad.
Bad news. The sickness is spreading across Mercia.
Then I'm going to ask about the sickness.
Yeah, this is like the first time we're hearing about it, and they seem like they've already heard it before.
How bad is it? Where in Mercia? Mercia is pretty big. Could you be more specific?
That's it.
Can you explain the symptoms? Can you tell us what to look for? Do you have it? Does anybody here have it? Oh my god. We need to know more detail.
Someone just developed allergies for the first time.
Yeah, right?
Rule yourself free.
Lady, do not be foolish. The sickness takes hold, regardless of rank.
I would rather be foolish than abandon my child.
So they've dealt with this sickness before. They don't have a name for it, but they've seen it before.
They seem to be down with it. It's a little upsetting. It seems like a little bit of a cop-out. Like, it's just like a generic sickness that makes people sick. I feel like this would be really substantial at the time, and it should affect Vikings and Saxons alike. And if it ends up fizzling out to just be like a random thing of like, oh yeah, also there's a sickness, but like, it's fine.
But then back to the main story.
Yeah, it's gonna be a little bit weird.
Maybe the sickness is what's going to cause something to happen with Elfwin's future husband, maybe. which will clear the way for Ethel Hood to just be like, lols, I'm just gonna take the throne myself.
Lols. It'll just happen to like kill all the eldermen, and everybody in Lannister just like, oh, I'm the only person left to rule. That's convenient. Oh.
Just right at the end of this field. Should be able to see the cross any moment.
Like if you look the other way, you'd see them.
This close. We're this close.
I'll be pissed if she dies. Not just because she's like a cute little innocent child, but also because she's supposed to take the throne afterwards.
Yeah, it wouldn't make sense for her to die now.
It wouldn't.
Yeah, she's supposed to rule after her mother. Not for long, but she's supposed to take the throne for a while.
Yeah, it's supposed to be Ethelflaed takes control of Mercia until her death a couple years later. And then her daughter comes into power for like a year, maybe tops.
I think it was like a few months.
Yeah,
honestly.
like not even.
Yeah.
Yeah, before Edward swoops in and is like, I'll take it from here, kid. This is the proper chain of events. So if they don't stick to it, I'm going to be pissed, actually. I'm going to be pretty upset.
There's going to be drama, but I have faith that in the end, they'll get there.
Yep.
Is it a spoiler if it's 1,000 years old?
No, it's not. It's not at all.
He is a man of action, not a man of politics.
In future, advise me better in whom we place our trust.
I don't think it's going to last much longer.
That's awesome. First off, whoo, was close.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Yeah, so ravens are obviously symbolic of the two ravens that Odin has, Hugin and Munin. And they're actually symbolic for thought and memory. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they fly around the world and they deliver news and what is happening to Odin. Mm-hmm. So the raven here is symbolic of Odin's presence.
I know a lot of times people will actually use Odin and the ravens to allude to a death. Because Odin is, the one who decides in battle if you live and die. Mm-hmm. So oftentimes, at least in TV shows and things, they'll kind of show Odin being there kind of watching over and weighing that decision essentially. Mm-hmm. So, and the other cool thing is that ravens are associated with Odin in the same way that wolves are. And both animals are creatures of the battlefield. They're scavengers mm-hmm. of men. And that's why they have the association with him, because Odin was a war god. Mm-hmm. And in the aftermath of battle, what animals are you going to see picking apart the corpses of the battle fallen? If not ravens and wolves. Yeah. But what's really cool about ravens, just as like a factual thing, is that they have a very good relationship with wolves. And they know what wolves are and what they do. They've been observed in nature to actually guide wolves to prey animals, because they know if the wolves get a kill, they will also get to eat.
Right. Which
is fascinating. And so with that in mind, it's really interesting that you see the raven like leading her to the sleeping Saxons.
Yeah.
Basically like guiding them to their prey.
So sort of like she's the wolf in this case. Or, well, maybe not her specifically, but the people that she's with will be the wolves, and the raven is guiding her so that they could have their battle and have their kills. Right,
exactly. And that builds into the next point, which is why they fled. Because I'm sure the modern viewer would say, well, they were all asleep, why not just kill them while they're sleeping? At least to the Vikings, that would have been an incredibly cowardly, dishonorable thing to do. There's actually an account in Njal's saga where Kari, the foster son of Njal, is avenging his family's murder, basically the burning, and he actually like tracks men down who are involved with it throughout and kills them in battle, and it's awesome. It's so awesome. It's so well done. But there's a point when he actually, it's him and another companion of his, a traveling companion of his, Bjorn, who lie in ambush for like a group of like 15 of them essentially, and they're all asleep and they have their spears kind of like planted into the ground in front of them as they're sleeping, and they actually take the spears and throw them into the lake and then wake them all up and allow them time to get dressed for battle and ready themselves before they make the onslaught, and kill like half of them before the rest flee. So it's interesting because they, you know, of course it would be smarter and more advantageous for yourself to just kill them while they're sleeping because it offers no harm for yourself, even being outnumbered or anything, but it's so against their nature and like what they're taught and raised to believe in that they would rather have a proper duel and a proper fight than risk that dishonor. The other option was to flee because insurmountable odds and children,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, I mean, they are outnumbered quite a bit.
Yeah.
We saw their numbers.
Absolutely. And I mean, even being renowned warriors and everything, they don't want to risk the lives of the children either.
Exactly,
So
yeah.
it makes more sense for them to flee with that mindset. But yeah, it does raise the question of like, why is Ethelflaed's daughter the one being visited by Odin's messenger, essentially?
I would wager a guess, and she's the closest to death. That would be my guess in all of that. It doesn't mean that she's going to die, although it could. But because out of the lot of them, she is the closest to death. It could be that
Being the
she's-
sickness?
Yeah. That she's the one that's seeing.
I made it myself. As I say, I taught myself many things. My blood on this rune is to protect us on our journey.
He's so uncomfortable by it.
So, a little bit about runes. They were absolutely used to invoke all sorts of things, including protection.
So it's the Tivas rune, which in the Viking Age would have been used for like the letter T or D. Runes were, as we've talked about before, if they were an alphabet, they were used for writing and just like the same like that we have for the ABCs, basically the alphabet here. But they also served like an esoteric divination practice as well. So they could be used as far as we can know. We believe that they would have been used for like casting lots and for magical practice as well. Just like with medicine, we really don't know much about the actual physical practice of magic, especially that because that was a very heathenistic thing to do. And so when Scandinavia and the Vikings became Christianized, all of that would have been completely out of bounds. So the whole like idea that we have about like carving runes and casting them for divination and things, it comes from Tacitus, who was a Roman, and he described the practice of the Gallic people, basically the Germanic people that he encountered. And again, well before the Viking Age, in like the 1st century AD, I believe. But he kind of explains and describes that he saw a woman who all the warrior men kind of revered and looked to for guidance. She had these runes that were carved onto the wood of a fruit-bearing tree, and basically she would spread out like a clean blank linen cloth, and she would take the runes and cast them onto it. And by seeing which runes fell where and their positions to each other, as well as which ones were facing and which ones were hidden and stuff like that, she was able to ascertain the future and things. So that's like the main description that we really have to go off of. And again, it's far removed from the Viking Age. It was 700 years before this would have been, and it was also a different society. It was the Germanic tribes rather than the the Nordic ones specifically. We know there's a lot of like back and forth between the two. There's a lot of similarities, and I mean, Nordic culture grew out of the Germanic ones, and so we have some theories that those kind of practices can branch off and mimic or mirror each other, but we don't know. And the descriptions that we do have from Tacitus is hundreds of years before any Viking presence, so it very well could have evolved and changed as we know it. We do believe that certain runes were used for certain magical rites because each rune has a certain esoteric meaning as well, beyond just a sound. To us, this rune, being associated with Tyr. Tyr is a god of war and also a god of justice. So we do have examples of this rune being carved, but we believe it has more of like a victory in war kind of association with it. Whereas the lady here was using it for protection, which would have been more proper to use something associated with like Thor or something. I would assume. So it's nice that they're kind of like including the whole divination esoteric practice with it, but it seems to be a little bit of a mix up with the proper runes.
Yeah, and especially used by a woman because that's essentially.
Well, that's also great.
And we've talked about it on the channel before. Satyr magic and magic in general was sort of something that women practiced a lot, so it kind of makes sense for her to be practicing magic out on the road and doing her thing. And the other thing that I wanted to mention, just building off of your other point where the rune may not make the most sense, we do have, and I think we had actually talked about this before in Egil Saga. There is a scene in that story where he discovers under a pillow of a sick young woman a bone that's been carved with runes that are meant to help her heal, but they're written wrong. So what he does is he basically like scuffs them off and rewrites the correct runes and puts it under the pillow, and within a few days she is better again. In this case, her using a rune that doesn't necessarily mean protection or wouldn't necessarily be used for protection, from what we know at least, may backfire. Yeah, absolutely. We'll see. I don't know if they'll go that in depth into it is the thing. Like, it would be an awesome turn of events to like bring that back into it. You know, the speculation of like if she like does a bunch of runes and like it's like, hey, you know, you might really not know what you're doing there. Because that was a thing. It was like a rite. You would go through like trials to learn about it and to be like a vulva. Yeah, you know? Exactly. We'll see. I don't think they'll go that far into it, but I'm curious if they follow up on it in some way.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'm not going to be really too much of a stickler in terms of like the specific rune that was carved because we don't know. We have no way of knowing, especially because there could be regional differences. That might be fine. Mm-hmm. Who knows? I'm not one to say.
Thank you for not killing my brother.
No honor in killing a sleeping man. If it comes to us, I will not hesitate.
I know.
Yeah, there you go.
I've chosen which bed to lie upon.
For all the daily you're in a pit.
It's a literal pit.
I'm not concerned about Edward. He seems to have come to his senses at last. But why has my daughter taken leave of hers?
Well, both kids can't be sane. Also, a little off topic, but the braids in her hair have been there for like months.
Where does it start? Where does it end?
I don't know, but who's braiding them? Who's fixing them for her? She's been traveling and being locked up, and
there's no way she's doing it herself. I'll tell you that much.
That is not a hairstyle you can do on your own head.
What's this?
Head over that bridge. Go.
Come out,
Why not into the trees?
Yeah, just go into the forest. Where are they running away from cover?
They were right there.
I'd rather face them and die now. Not sweating and shooting in 3 days' time.
He murdered Lord Ethelred. I witnessed
So
it.
speaks a traitor of mercy.
As he lay mortally wounded in his bed.
This is the words of a whore.
I will swear to it on the book. Save yourself before these men kill you. Flee to Frankie, brother.
He's gonna let him go.
From Ireland. They told me to say they are intent on slaughter. And yours is the first head they will take.
Oh, it's suddenly their problem.
There will be plenty of time for
But he's just like...
playing games before we'll be needing one of them.
like he knows.
She literally is. She literally is the future. Like it's not like an exaggeration. I'm not being dramatic. It's how it happens. Yeah. Don't ask me how I know. It just happens. I'm a little torn with this episode, honestly.
It's a filler to get us through to the end. And these episodes kind of frustrate me a little bit because these shows get, 10 episodes a season, 12 episodes a season, whatever. Like, why waste them? Like, if you need less episodes to tell a story, take less episodes to tell a story.
Have like an 8-episode season.
Yeah. Like,
exactly.
You don't need 10 episodes to tell a season that could be told in 6 or however long.
Yeah.
So this is a little bit more of a filler. I feel like more than half of it was kind of taken up with people warning each other about the sickness, which we don't know exactly what that kind of alludes to.
Yeah, I feel like it was a big cop-out. It was like a big plot point of this episode, and like it was totally just like nothing.
Yeah. I guess the thing that frustrates me a little bit about it is everyone's talking about the sickness, but we don't see what it could have possibly been. Like, is it a flu? Is it a cold? Is it COVID? What are we talking about here?
It's too real. No, but yeah, seriously, like, we see dead people, we see sick people, but we don't see why. We don't see how. We don't... Okay, they're coughing. Like, whatever. I do that sometimes, too. Like, to clear my throat, or cause I don't know how to swallow anymore. Like, it happens. Like, it would have been good to see some kind of, like, indication of it. Like, some differential.
Yeah.
It kind of missed the mark that it should have hit. I feel like it was a big recurring thing in the episode. And it kind of drew me back a bit.
I am finding it a little bit interesting, and this could be foreshadowing that Edward feels very at home calling the shots in Mercia because it could allude to his future rule in Mercia after Elfwin, after he takes over for her, after her, or whatever the heck happens there.
Yeah, it seems like he's definitely becoming more comfortable calling the shots and like going against other people's best wishes, against their advice. Like, yeah, well, I mean, like, the whole thing was like, oh, well, it's like they wouldn't really like it. And he's just like, I don't care, do it. Like, get it done.
Yeah. His character development has been kind of interesting. I know we talked about, like, a few weeks ago, that he is going to have to develop as a character because he was basically listening to very bad advice by somebody that wanted to be in power. And he wasn't acting like the Edward that we know historically speaking.
Right.
And I feel like he is starting to take on that role, and he is starting to sort of push that bad advice aside and say, we have to be allies of Mercia, and we have to work together, and we have to continue what our father started, and everything. So that is heading in the correct direction, I feel like. And on top of that, the fact that he is feeling more comfortable calling the shots in Mercia as well could allude to his future reign there.
That's very true. And also, just kind of build on that as well, is the fact that he, like, the side plots and, like, the side scheming of people close to him is starting to get back to him. So he's starting to kind of piece that together and realize that even people close to him, while giving him sound advice and playing as a friend, he's really starting to see the inner workings of how that kind of affects and how that takes shape. So he's going to be more aware of it and just grow more and more distant with those people. Here's hoping.
Exactly.
So it is good to see that kind of development. It is slow, but it seems to be starting to really solidify.
Yeah, for sure.
And they did have some nice little notions here and there. I loved the whole, like,
the raven
thing. I love it so much. So, like, I want to kind of keep it at a 6, but still, like, shift it down a bit. Like, I kind of wish I went to a 7 last time so I could bring it back down to a 6 and still have it, like, decently high. I think just for sake of that, I'm just going to say 5.
I don't really see that they lost any historical accuracy, integrity, at least unless they kill off.
Yeah, they're, like, threatening to do it.
Yeah, but
for drama's sake.
Yeah, but I don't think they're going to. I hope, I have faith in the show that they're not going to.
Yeah.
As far as historical integrity goes, I don't think they've lost anything. I think they've just kind of interjected this new line of, well, people are getting sick. I'm just kind of like thinking about it just in terms of historical integrity, because that's what we're basing it on.
Yeah, nothing changed really in
not
terms
like
of
so much
that.
like the actual writing.
Yeah.
So
you convinced me. Okay.
I think I'm gonna keep mine consistent. I'm gonna just keep mine at a 7 for now, because I haven't seen anything that's so historically tragic that, you know, I have to bring it down, and I haven't seen anything to bring it up, so...
That's very fair. That's fair. Okay, you convinced me. Yeah, no, I'm going to keep mine consistent with a 6, because even though I'm, like, annoyed by the sickness thing and just it being a cop-out, it's definitely more of, like, a plot development than any kind of, like,
more just a
historical
writing
measure.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're just using it as a plot device to bring in drama. I know the girl's going to be fine, historically speaking. They've always been really good about being true to the history, to the steps that we take, so it'll probably just be like a dramatic thing to be like, oh, is she going to die, the poor girl? But no, she'll be fine.
Yeah, and I kind of said it last week, they do have a tendency to keep true to, like, the historical accuracy beats, but how they get there is a little bit more of the wishy-washy,
Exactly.
you know, writing styles that they have.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'll follow your suit. I'll keep mine consistent, stay 6. Cool.
Thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you can be notified of our future videos. And we will see you in the next one.